Earlier this afternoon, because of the time difficulties, I spoke to Mick Mulvaney, currently the United States Special Envoy for Northern Ireland, previously the Director of the Office, very important, Office of Management and Budget from February 2017 until March this year under the Trump administration. He was the acting White House Chief of Staff to Donald Trump from January 2019 to March 2020. He joined me earlier today from Florida. I began by asking him that point that Rita has just made, that if Florida, with 21.5 million people, could complete the count yesterday, why was the counting of the other states suspended?
For a variety of reasons, Alan. What you're learning firsthand is something we've known forever in this country, which is that counting votes here, running elections, is usually a shambles. It's done at a very local level. In most states, it's done by volunteers at local churches, at local gymnasiums, and those types of things, local schools. It's not a centralized operation. It's not a professional operation. Certainly, there are professionals at it, but it's run by volunteers for the most part. And some states do it better than others. Florida, for example, to your point, said, "Well, goodness gracious, we have a lot more mail-in ballots this year because of COVID. So we better start preparing so that we can count them on the day." They did a lot of preparatory work before Tuesday so that when Tuesday came, they were ready to start counting the ballots right away. Of course, they finished yesterday. Pennsylvania chose affirmatively not to take the same steps. Michigan the same way. They said, you know what, we're not going to prepare. We sort of like it the old way where it's kind of fuzzy, so we're just going to go ahead and not finish the counting on Tuesday. Stunningly, and we're just sort of learning about this, and this would even surprise me, and I'm about as cynical as it gets when it comes to elections in my own country. Nevada took the day off today. Nevada just decided they weren't going to count it all today, and they're going to pick it up again tomorrow. So again, you're starting to get a flavor for the texture of an American election.
Mick.
So I'm in downtown Detroit at the TCF Center, which is in the heart of Detroit, in the heart of the D. And I had a couple of people reach out to me and say, could you do another Facebook Live and explain where you're at and why you're here? You can see behind me, that giant room behind me is where they are contesting ballots. So something that's very interesting that happened here in Detroit is, I just talked to a guy that's been here all night. They were ready to shut down the precinct. They had counted all the ballots. Everything was good. Everything went smoothly. And then it was at about 4 a.m. that 3 vehicles arrived, a van, a Chrysler 300, and a Ferrari with 130,000 plus ballots. He said he was astonished as they started counting the ballots. He was astonished that every single ballot, like literally 100% of that 130,000 ballots were all Biden ballots that hadn't been delivered to the precinct before the cutoff time for this precinct. So obviously there's, that's just a big irregularity, something that points to large-scale voter fraud, and it literally is being contested by the President of the United States in a lawsuit right now for the state of Michigan. We literally have people that watched it happen. I talked to people that are here. They're like, what? 130,000 ballots that haven't been verified, that are just being taken in. We have poll challengers that have been barred from being able to go into this room to challenge ballots. We've had GOP members removed from the room. You're allowed to have a certain number depending on the number of precincts. I think it's 134 precincts that we have in Michigan, or excuse me, not in Michigan, in this particular county, Wayne County, Michigan. And we probably have maybe 50 to 60 representatives that have been allowed to go in to challenge. Mind you, according to federal law, for each precinct, there is to be one Democrat, one Republican to challenge. That hasn't been allowed in 24, well, actually since this morning, since about 5 a.m. this morning when those 130 ballots were dropped off. We then had the situation where at one point that people here in Detroit who are poll challengers or poll watchers were being barred from the building based on an order from the governor and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services saying that capacity limits had been met. Now, mind you, that room had capacity limits. We didn't have the number of people that we were allowed to by law that we were supposed to have in the room. The rest of the building, I'm in a 40,000 square foot building. 40,000, or is it 400,000 square feet? Very, very, very big. Cobo, it's the old Cobo Arena. And we're spread out all over. I can run down the hall naked. I'm not going to do that, don't worry. But I could and not be seen by anybody. I could pick a hall. That's how not populated it is. So that we have the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services treating this like it's any regular day, not a ballot counting polling situation, which is regulated by federal law during times such as these to operate under a different law than what is normal for capacity during COVID times. So, in addition, we know, we've seen, we've heard, that poll workers, the poll contesters are being harassed and intimidated. The ACLU was allowed in to the room and to interfere with somebody from the GOP to challenge a poll. And I'm like, why does the ACLU get to have representation, but nonpartisan and Republicans are being barred from not only entering the challenge room, but also the building? At one point, I left the building, and again, I'm at TCF in Detroit to go and make copies, and I got stuck in an elevator because the security guard said I wasn't allowed to go back up, and I'm like, these are, I talked my way out, out of that, of course, because, it's me. These are official documents for the GOP, which they were, to contest polling practices, and, I need to go up. This is, my person that I came with is here, my car keys are here. There were a lot of people that were locked out of the building after they'd been in. They left for lunch. They weren't allowed back in, again, under the order of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So, shenanigans in Detroit. And I'm not making light of it because it's really heartbreaking that this is what we've come to as a country. This is what we've stooped to as a country. Shame on us. Shame on us that partisan politics has taken away common decency, truth, honesty, integrity. It is disgusting what is happening in Detroit. It is disgusting. And it isn't about an election. It is about major fraud on a major scale that was very well organized. So I'm just going to reverse the angle on the camera so that you guys can kind of see what's going on. I'll get as close as I can without getting arrested. So what you have here is, oh, and they put up a bunch of signs to block too. So this is where all the GOP people that are waiting to get into the room are standing. They just a few minutes ago let in 5 people, but no more than 5 people. And we know that we're down probably 50 people in there. So it's been very interesting. Detroit Police Department is representing. Again, when I got stuck in the elevator with the security guard told me that it was the management company for TCF Center that was making the call on locking people out. And so I tracked that person down and I talked to him, and I have his business card. And he's like, no, it wasn't us. You know, he's like, I don't know where that would be coming from. Michigan Department of Health and Human Services was also here, and I chased him down. And I talked to him, and he's like, well, I don't know voting laws. And I'm like, well, why are you here trying to regulate? Because this is a voting situation. This is a poll counting location. This is not business as usual. Why are you even here? And he's like, well, I'm calling my supervisor, and I will, I'm waiting for direction from my supervisor. So I asked who his supervisor was. Her last name is Fair. And then he ran away from me down the escalator and met with Captain Johnson from the Detroit Police Department, and promised me that he'd come back out to give me an update. Of course he didn't. So, it's very obvious that, things aren't as they should be. And I'm really glad that it's being contested. It's really discouraging, and it's a little bit heartbreaking, but I'm a person of faith, and I believe that God is bigger than even this, and no matter what, God reigns. So again, from the TCF Center in Detroit, I will go ahead and post this and share it. So if you're just joining and you've missed out, this is the poll counting. And mind you, I can't wear a mask, won't wear a mask, and I've been here all day. So, yeah. Keep praying, pray big.
Looks like one of those lock boxes. I wish I could tell. Where'd this little guy come from so late at night? I think all the polling places were closed. And yet we have a box.